Hey everybody, this is Crowmar with TGN, and I'm here today to bring you another World of Warcraft Cataclysm video. Today we're looking at the Public Test Realm Hunter, the 4.0.6 test patch that's on the PTRs right now, and we're looking at Marksmanship. We're going to see what kind of DPS we can get out of Marksmanship given the upgrades and whatnot that are in this patch. So let me just talk about what the upgrades actually are. The first thing you'll notice is that when your auto shot continues while moving. Now, obviously this is great for PvP, but it's great for PvE as well, although it won't affect this test much in a practical situation when you're actually going to be expecting to be moving constantly. It just gives you more DPS, and Wild Quiver, which procs off your auto shot, is a big part of that DPS. In addition to the changes to auto shot, there's some significant buffs that went in. You might notice that aim shot received a very big buff. It's now quite powerful, and the instant version of aim shot, which you get with Master Marksman, is as well. They also buffed Chimera shot quite a bit, and they even had a slight buff for arcane shot for some reason. Now, your spec hasn't really changed, although there's one thing about the spec I want to talk about. In this test, I do not have careful aim. The reason is that the dummies, they have 80% health, over 80% health all the time, so if I was to have this talent for the test, it would greatly throw off my numbers. So whatever numbers I get from this test, you're going to have to just add in careful aim kind of in your head. I don't really know how to, I'm sure if I really spent the time we could figure out a way to calculate this, but this isn't that scientific. So just for your spec, just take the points out of rapid killing that I have here and put them into careful aim. For your other talents, specking marksmen is a little tough. There's a little more complicated than other specs. I mean, the stuff down here is obvious. Some of these are not as obvious, like Resistance is Futile is technically a DPS increase since it gives you free kill commands occasionally when the boss is moving, when the target's moving, which is, you know, a lot of bosses. So actually you do get occasional procs of this talent, but it's pretty rare, and it doesn't affect this test anyway. Bombardment is something to think about since it does allow you in you know, ads, trash, and whatnot, so it's not a bad talent either. You could actually take this point out of Resistance is Futile and put it in a Bombardment. You can make some other changes, I guess. I mean, silencing shot's not really 100% necessary, but it has great utility. I mean, I'm sure your raid would not be happy with you if you didn't take this, since, you know, that you need interrupters, especially in a 10-man. Then we have this talent Termination. Now, this works when the enemy is below 25% health. This is pretty good, but your focus is not a big deal once a target gets under 20% because you're going to be using kill shot so much. You're probably going to have a lot of extra focus as long as you're maintaining your improved steady shot buff. So I'm not sure how useful this will be. It doesn't affect the test either. So again, you know, these questions are things that are just for a more practical rating situation. But once you have your 31 points here, now for the rest of your points, Frenzy, is actually a really powerful talent. It has a lot of DPS to your pet, and it's definitely worth taking. It's a raw DPS increase. And then of course, Bestial Discipline, because let me show you here. Because of this talent Wild Hunt for your pet, you want to have as much focus regeneration as possible. And you get a lot from these talents here, but adding in Bestial Discipline helps too. Now with your remaining talent points, I've only got 2 out of 3 out of 1 with Nature and 2 with Pathfinding. The reason is that I had to get 2 here to get Frenzy. So after that I had 1 point left over for Pathing or 1 with Nature, and I just looked that up, and according to Elitist Jerks, it comes out to more damage with Pathfinding. So I'm going to go with that. And honestly, the difference is really not that much of a difference at all. It's 1% haste versus like 200 attack power or something. Not even 200, it's less than that. But anyway, the only other talents available, Improved Serpent Sting is not that great since the damage of Serpent Sting is so small. It's almost, you know, not negligible, but it's pretty poor. So I wouldn't really worry about that. And you're only going to cast it once, unlike Serpent Spread, which causes your Improved Serpent Sting to proc extra times. The Chimera Shot, which refreshes Serpent Sting, does not proc more Improved Serpent Sting. So that's just a little coding difference. Serpent Spread versus Chimera Shot. Serpent Spread will proc Improved Serpent Sting, Chimera Shot won't. So as a Marksmanship hunter with Chimera Shot, you don't get much benefit out of this talent, really. Glyph choices are pretty easy. Major and minor, there's nothing to choose from at all. They're all useless, except for, you know, weird random utility, but nothing for DPS. I did have the silencing shot here. In the extremely rare case you manage to actually use this glyph, you will gain a tiny amount of focus. So I guess you could consider this one to be a DPS increase, but it's so small I don't even want to bother with it. I just have it because there's nothing else to take. For your prime glyphs, of course, Arcane Shot and Steady Shot are obvious since those are both huge parts of your DPS. Now, you would think that Chimera Shot would be as well, although because it is a decently powerful ability. The problem is that in order to make use of this cooldown reduction, you have to be able to use Chimera Shot perfectly every single time it comes off cooldown, which is just not reasonable. I mean, you could, I guess, but then you wind up missing steady shots. You know, waiting for the extra second for Chimera Shot or whatever. It's just not practical to get the full benefit out. Even if you did have the full benefit, it's just not as much as Glyph of Kill Shot, which is an extremely powerful glyph that basically gives you double kill shot once the boss gets down under 20%. And since the 20%, the last 20% is the most important part of the encounter, well, yeah, this is obvious. This is a must-have. Now, your rotation is actually very simple. It's one of the simplest rotations in the game, along with your Fury Warriors and your Combat Rogues and such. What you want to do is just open with a Serpent Sting and a Chimera Shot. You'll never cast Serpent Sting again unless it falls off, which in a boss fight it might happen due to bosses moving or whatever. But assuming it doesn't, you'll never cast a Serpent Sting again. You want to just spend the rest of your focus with Arcane Shot, being careful to not miss a Chimera Shot opportunity. In between shots, you want to have even steady shots. You want to make sure you do 2 steady shots in a row every time. That way you can maintain your improved steady shot buff, which is the 15% haste. That's extremely important. You don't want to let that drop off either. You lose a lot of DPS. Whenever Master Marksman reaches 5 stacks, which is not that often, then you want to go ahead and just put in the extra aim shot in somewhere in your rotation. It shouldn't be that hard to fit it in, and because you're going to actually have a lot of open times when you're going to be casting extra steady shots that you don't need. Once you get down to under 20%, you just weave in a double kill shot whenever you possibly can without ever letting the improved steady shot drop off. If you do have Resistance as Feudal proc, assuming you have a point in that, then by all means throw in a kill command. All you lose is the global cooldown. It's free damage essentially. $11.5 when I stopped. Fix that. It's slowly ticking down still because of all the dots. But anyway, 11.5. Really bad result. I'm really surprised, and it's kind of weird. I mean, there seems to be a big RNG factor because I've run this test a whole bunch of times before I started recording this video, and I was also trying other rotations and stuff. But with this rotation, the highest result I actually got 14K once with this result. And I was expecting to be in the ballpark of that, but I just ran this test. I actually filmed it 3 times, and each time I just did, the whole duration of Hunter's Mark, and every time it turned out under 12K. It was ranging. This was 11.5. I think I had 11.8 in there once, and I'm not sure why. I think the only thing I can say is that with the low crit chance that we have now, it's hurting a lot. I mean, look at this aim shot damage of 53K. Aim shot crit. If your crit was higher and you got a couple more of those in there, holy smokes, because that would really help with your piercing shots. I mean, look at the variance on piercing shot ticks all the way from 311 minimum to 2000 maximum. So I think crit is a very important stat. I think that hunters will get a little better as they scale. But as it stands, if the RNG is not extremely lenient to you, your DPS is going to show up very low. Now, as far as this breakdown goes, Wild Quiver being at the top is just whoa, just totally blows my mind. This is one of the best masteries in the game. It's amazing, but yet crit is still more highly valued than mastery due to piercing shots and all this other stuff you gain. There's like a whole slew of talents that you gain from crit, like here you go, Sick 'em and Go for the Throat, both gives you more pet DPS and so on and so forth, and there's more in here that I just can't even think of them all off the top of my head. The bottom line is that crit and mastery are both very powerful stats for you. I would stay away from haste though. This character is reforged for crit. I'm just at the hit cap, reforged for crit, then mastery second, and I'm gemmed for agility, of course. So where's that leave the Marks Hunter? Not in a great position. I mean, I will say that in practical considerations, the auto shot buff, auto shot while moving, is going to be really, really nice. Now, in case you're curious, I just want to mention it. I am using a Raptor who uses Sunder Armor as their special ability, and that does affect this character quite a bit, since so much of their damage is physical, more so than any other, well, not any other spec, but Beastmaster won't be using a Raptor. They'll be using a Double Sword probably, so more so than Survival anyway. Now, I did use Hunter's Mark in this test, but it wasn't that important. The thing is that because of this talent marked for death, you don't actually have to use Hunter's Mark. I mainly use it for timing. I would just, it acted as a timer for me. As soon as it ran out, I knew that my test was done. That's the only reason I used it. So anyway, that's all for today for the Marksmanship Hunter. Test didn't turn out too well for them. Still would avoid them in raiding. Survival is still king, but at least you can still, at least you can shoot while moving, which will be nice, at least for PvP anyway. Thanks for watching. This is Crowmar with TGN. As always, asking you to please rate, please comment, and please subscribe.